May I share with you something that others would dismiss as the ramblings of an old mystic, but which you who have felt that strange pull in your chest when you read the news, that unexplained urgency when you watch the world shifting beneath our feet, you already know carries the weight of truth? For 7 decades, I have sat in the sacred darkness, watching the patterns emerge from the void like constellations spelling out humanity's destiny. Not through crystal balls or theatrical ceremonies, but through that ancient art of seeing beyond the veil that separates what is from what is becoming. I have witnessed the birth and death of empires in the trembling of a single leaf, heard the collapse of economic systems in the silence between heartbeats, felt the pulse of collective consciousness as it prepares for transformation. If you have found yourself here, in this moment, reading these words, it is because you are among those who sense that something profound is stirring. You feel it in your bones, don't you? That electric tension in the air before the storm breaks. That knowing that arrives without explanation, whispering that the world as we know it is preparing to shed its old skin. In the coming minutes, you will understand why that mysterious prediction I made about 2026, the one that scholars and skeptics have debated for years, is already manifesting around us with a speed that should both humble and terrify those who still believe in the illusion of linear time. What I am about to reveal will reorganize your understanding of how prophecy works, how the future bleeds backward into our present moment, and why you have been chosen to witness this acceleration. This is no coincidence, your being here. The universe does not deal in accidents when it comes to the great turnings of fate. You are being prepared, whether you realize it or not, to be a witness to something that happens perhaps once in 1,000 years. But before we descend into these deeper waters together, let me ask you to subscribe to this sacred space, because what we discuss here cannot be found in the corridors of power or the headlines of newspapers. This is the knowledge they would prefer remained buried, the patterns they hope you will not recognize. And at the end of our journey today, I will ask you to share in the comments what signs you have witnessed in your own life, because your observations are the threads that weave the greater tapestry of understanding. The prediction that has haunted the minds of those who remember was never about a single event occurring in 2026. How little they understood the nature of prophetic vision. It was about a threshold, a crossing point where humanity would face its greatest choice. But what I see now, what keeps me awake in the hours before dawn, is that this threshold is not waiting for us in some distant future. It is here. It is now. It is moving through our world like water finding its level. You who have felt that gnawing sensation that time itself has been accelerating, you are not imagining things. You who wake with dreams you cannot quite remember, but which leave you with a sense of urgency you cannot name. You are receiving transmissions from the collective unconscious as it prepares for metamorphosis. You who find yourself drawn to knowledge that your rational mind insists is impossible, you are being called to serve as bridges between what was and what must be. Let me tell you what others will not. The signs are everywhere, but they speak in a language older than words. The migration patterns of birds carrying messages of magnetic field disruptions that will reshape continents. The unexpected behavior of weather systems as the Earth herself begins to breathe differently. The strange dreams that seem to be spreading like a virus through the collective unconscious. Dreams of waters rising and falling, of lights in the sky, of conversations with beings who feel familiar yet impossible. But perhaps most telling of all is what I observe in the human heart itself. There is a restlessness moving through our species, a dissatisfaction that cannot be satisfied by the old answers. Marriage is ending not from lack of love, but from an inexplicable need to become something new. Career paths abandoned, not from failure, but from a sudden understanding that the old structures no longer serve. A growing hunger for meaning that the material world cannot feed. Do you recognize yourself in this description? Do you feel that pull towards something greater, even as those around you seem content to sleep through the transformation? This is why the 2026 prediction is manifesting ahead of schedule. Consciousness itself has accelerated. The collective awakening that was meant to unfold gradually over several years is instead arriving in waves, each one more powerful than the last. And with each wave, more individuals find themselves standing at the crossroads I described, forced to choose between the familiar prison of the known and the terrifying freedom of the unknown. What troubles the powers of this world is not the prediction itself, but the speed at which humanity is beginning to remember who we truly are. They built their systems on our forgetting, structured their control around our belief in limitation and separation. But now, like seeds that have waited through the longest winter, something ancient and powerful is beginning to stir within the human spirit. You may have noticed it in small ways at first, synchronicities that seemed too meaningful to be random, conversations that led to exactly the information you needed, doors opening just as others closed, people appearing in your life who carried pieces of a puzzle you didn't even know you were solving. These are not accidents. These are the early tremors of a transformation so profound that it will be remembered long after our current civilization has become legend. And you, whether you feel ready or not, are part of this awakening. The question that haunts me in the deep hours of the night is not whether this transformation will occur. That outcome was sealed long before most of us drew our first breath. The question is whether humanity will move through this passage with wisdom or with violence, with love or with fear, with consciousness or with chaos. And this is where your role becomes crucial. For you are not merely witnesses to this unfolding. You are participants. Your choices, your awareness, your willingness to see beyond the veil of ordinary perception. These become the determining factors in how our collective story unfolds. I have spent decades watching the patterns, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that we stand now at the most critical juncture in human history. Not in 2026, as I once saw, but here, now, in this very moment as you read these words. The acceleration has brought the future rushing toward us like a tide that cannot be turned back. Share this understanding with someone who needs to hear it, someone who has been asking the same questions that led you here, because in the sharing of sacred knowledge, in the recognition that we are not alone in sensing these great changes, we create the network of awakened consciousness that will guide our species through the darkness ahead. The veil is thinning. The old certainties are crumbling, and from the ruins of what was, something magnificent is preparing to be born. Are you ready to see what emerges from the chrysalis? You see, my dear ones, when I first began to perceive what was coming in 2026, I experienced something that defied everything I thought I knew about time itself. It was not like watching a distant storm approach across the horizon. No, it was as if I was standing inside the storm while it was still 3 years away, feeling the electricity crackling through my very bones. This is the mystery I must share with you now, because understanding this changes everything. The prophecy is not arriving on schedule. It has been arriving all along, in fragments, in whispers, in the shifting currents of consciousness that most people mistake for ordinary change. Time, as the mystics have always known, is not the linear progression we imagine. It is more like a vast lake, where a stone thrown in one place creates ripples that reach every shore simultaneously. The events of 2026 cast their shadows backward through time, and if you know how to read these shadows, you can see the future unfolding in the present moment. I have spent decades learning to read these temporal echoes. When I was a child in Bulgaria, before my gift fully awakened, my grandmother would take me to the old church where candle flames danced in ways that seemed to defy the still air. She would whisper to me, "Little one, the flame knows something the candle does not. It flickers not because of the wind, but because it remembers the wind that is coming." Now I understand what she meant. Consciousness itself creates ripples in time. When enough souls begin to awaken, and this awakening has been accelerating exponentially, reality begins to compress, to fold in upon itself like origami made of light and possibility. This is what I have witnessed in these recent months, and it takes my breath away each time. Events that I saw clearly positioned in 2026 are manifesting now in 2024, as if time itself has grown impatient with its own rules. The boundaries between what is, what was, and what will be have become as thin as morning mist. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. 3 weeks ago, I was walking through my garden at dawn, a ritual that grounds me in the present while keeping me open to the eternal. As I touched the petals of a rose that had bloomed unseasonably late, I suddenly found myself experiencing a moment from 2026 as if it were happening now. I saw millions of people around the world simultaneously having what I can only call a recognition. Not a revelation, but a remembering of something they had always known but forgotten. This was not prediction. This was direct experience of a timeline that exists parallel to our current moment, pressing against the membrane of now with increasing intensity. You see, prophecy is not about predicting the future. It is about recognizing the patterns that are already in motion, the seeds that have already been planted in the fertile darkness of the collective unconscious. What I perceive as 2026 is actually the culmination of forces that began stirring in 1996, gained momentum in 2012, and are now accelerating beyond anything I originally anticipated. The difference is crucial. When we think of prediction, we imagine someone glimpsing a fixed future, like looking at a distant mountain. But reality is not fixed. Reality is fluid, responsive, alive. What I see are probability waves, potential futures crystallizing into form through the power of collective focus and intention. And here is what astounds me. The collective focus has shifted. Humanity is waking up faster than even my most optimistic vision suggested. The events of recent years, the global pause, the questioning of old systems, the hunger for authentic connection, these were the catalysts that compressed the timeline. I remember a vision I had in 2018. I saw humanity standing at a crossroads, and I perceived two possible paths. One led through gradual awakening over decades. The other led through rapid acceleration, where change that might have taken generations would unfold in years. At the time, I felt the gradual path was more probable. But something extraordinary has happened. We chose acceleration. This brings me to the 3 signs that confirm we have already entered the prophetic timeline I originally saw for 2026. If you have been paying attention, you have likely noticed these yourself, though you may not have understood their significance. The first sign is what I call the Great Remembering. People everywhere are beginning to remember abilities, insights, and connections they thought were lost. Children are being born with an awareness that previous generations had to seek for lifetimes to achieve. Adults are suddenly finding themselves able to perceive energies, understand languages they never learned, know things they have no logical reason to know. This widespread awakening of latent human potential was the cornerstone of my 2026 vision, yet it is happening now, all around us. The second sign is the dissolution of artificial boundaries. Not just political or social boundaries, though those are certainly shifting, but the more fundamental boundaries between mind and matter, between self and other, between what we call possible and impossible. Scientists are documenting phenomena they cannot explain. Healers are achieving results that defy medical understanding. Ordinary people are experiencing synchronicities so precise and frequent that they can no longer dismiss them as coincidence. I want to pause here and speak directly to those of you who have been experiencing this dissolution in your own lives. Perhaps you have found yourself knowing exactly what someone was about to say before they spoke. Perhaps you have dreamed of events that later unfolded with startling accuracy. Perhaps you have felt the pain or joy of someone miles away, only to discover later that they were indeed experiencing exactly what you felt. These are not anomalies. These are confirmations that you are living in prophetic time, where the veils between dimensions grow thin and consciousness begins to remember its true nature. If you are experiencing these phenomena, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Your experience matters. It is part of the great tapestry of awakening that is weaving itself across the planet. And if you know someone who is struggling to understand their own expanding awareness, please share this message with them. They need to know they are not alone. The third sign is perhaps the most significant, the emergence of what I call coherent collective intention. For the first time in recorded history, large numbers of humans are beginning to focus their consciousness in aligned ways, not through dogma or ideology, but through direct recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness. This is creating what mystics have long called morphic resonance, a field effect where positive change in one place instantly influences the potential for positive change everywhere else. This coherent intention is literally reshaping reality at quantum levels. What takes years to manifest under normal circumstances can now unfold in months, weeks, even days. This is why the 2026 timeline is collapsing into the present moment. But understand, this is not about rushing towards some predetermined future. This is about recognizing that the future we have been waiting for is emerging from within us right now. The transformation I saw for 2026 is not something that will happen to us. It is something that we are actively becoming. As I watch these patterns accelerate, I am reminded of my grandmother's words about the candle flame. We are the flame now, dancing not because of winds that are blowing, but because we remember the winds that are coming. And in that remembering, in that anticipation, in that preparation, we become the very change we have been prophesying. The question is no longer whether the 2026 prophecy will come to pass. The question is, how consciously will you participate in its unfolding? Stay with me, because what I am about to share next will show you exactly how to align yourself with this accelerating timeline, and why some will experience this transformation as the greatest blessing of their lives, while others will experience it as the greatest challenge they have ever faced. What I witnessed in my visions was not just a single event, but three great pillars holding up the architecture of change itself. Three forces that would reshape everything we thought we knew about reality. And now, as I observe the world with these inner eyes that have never failed me, I see these pillars rising faster than even I had foreseen. The first pillar, it is the great separation. Picture, if you will, two rivers that have flowed side by side for centuries, their waters mingling, appearing as one. But beneath the surface, a great shift in the earth's foundation begins. Slowly at first, then with gathering force, the land rises between them. What was once a single flowing stream becomes two distinct waterways, each carrying its own current, each moving toward a different destination. This is happening now to humanity itself. Those who see and those who sleep are no longer walking the same path, merely at different speeds. They are walking entirely different paths toward entirely different worlds. And this separation, it accelerates everything. In my vision, I saw this division would become visible by 2026. But look around you now, in this moment. Can you not feel it? The invisible line drawn through families, through friendships, through entire communities. It is not about politics, though politics reflects it. It is not about beliefs, though beliefs express it. It is about something far deeper, the capacity to perceive reality itself. Those who see are beginning to recognize each other through signs that would have seemed meaningless just years ago. A certain quality of attention, a willingness to sit with mystery rather than rushing to explanations, an understanding that the world is far more fluid, far more responsive to consciousness than we were taught. They find each other through synchronicities that multiply like reflections in facing mirrors. But those who sleep, they sleep more deeply now, as if some great anesthesia has descended. The louder the wake-up call becomes, the more they retreat into patterns that once brought comfort, but now bring only the illusion of safety. They cannot see what the others see, not because they lack intelligence, but because seeing requires a fundamental shift in how one exists in the world. This separation creates acceleration because, listen carefully, when consciousness divides into distinct streams, each stream moves faster. It is spiritual physics. The awakening ones pull each other forward through recognition and resonance. The sleeping ones create a kind of drag that the awakening ones no longer need to overcome. What was once a single mass of humanity moving slowly becomes two currents, each finding its own velocity. The second pillar reveals itself through our relationship with the very tools we created to bring us together. Technology. It was meant to be our great connector, was it not? Yet observe what has actually occurred. We have built the new Tower of Babel, and just as in the ancient story, our common language dissolves into confusion, even as we speak more than ever before. In my visions, I saw that by 2026, technology would create unprecedented division disguised as unprecedented connection. But this is happening now, years ahead of schedule, because consciousness and technology are dancing together in ways we did not anticipate. Every day, millions of souls stare into screens that show them exactly what their existing beliefs expect to see. They call this information, but it is really confirmation. They believe they are connecting with others, but they are connecting only with echoes of themselves. The algorithm, it is not neutral. It learns not just what you want to see, but what you need to see to remain exactly who you already are. Meanwhile, others use these same tools to pierce through illusion, to find truth that conventional channels would never share, to connect across vast distances with those who recognize the same deeper patterns. The same technology serves both awakening and sleeping, but in entirely opposite ways. Do you see the acceleration here? In previous eras of great change, information moved slowly. A new idea might take decades to spread. Now, both truth and illusion travel at the speed of light. Both awakening and deeper sleeping happen simultaneously in the same digital space, sometimes through the same exact piece of information. This creates exponential acceleration in both directions. The tower we have built reaches not toward heaven, but into every moment of daily life. Every interaction with technology is now a choice point. Will this draw you deeper into wisdom or deeper into the maze of endless distraction? The speed at which these choices accumulate is unprecedented in human history. The third pillar. This one moves through the very ground beneath our feet. Mother Earth herself responding to the shifts in human consciousness faster than the old timeline predicted. You see, the planet is not separate from consciousness. She is consciousness, vast and ancient, and intimately connected to every thought, every emotion, every choice made by her human children. In the original vision, I saw environmental responses beginning to mirror human consciousness around 2026. But look, the Earth changes are already reflecting back to us the acceleration of our own awakening process. The fires, the floods, the unprecedented weather patterns, they are not just physical events, they are messages written in the language of elements. Where human consciousness fragments most severely, the earth fractures. Where awakening happens most rapidly, the old structures dissolve to make space for something new. Natural disasters appear random to the sleeping mind, but they follow patterns that mirror exactly the consciousness changes happening in those locations. This creates yet another layer of acceleration. As consciousness shifts faster, Earth responds faster. As Earth responds faster, it catalyzes even more rapid consciousness shifts in those who can read the signs. It is a feedback loop of awakening, each element amplifying the others. But why does acceleration happen during awakening periods? There is a spiritual mathematics to this, ancient and precise. When consciousness reaches a certain threshold of expansion, time itself begins to behave differently. Not the time measured by clocks, but the time in which meaningful change occurs. Picture a river approaching a waterfall. For miles upstream, the water moves at a steady, predictable pace. But as it nears the edge, everything accelerates. The closer to the fall, the faster the current becomes. Consciousness evolution follows the same pattern. We are approaching a great waterfall of awareness, and everything speeds up as we near the edge. The three pillars support each other in this acceleration. The great separation creates two distinct currents of consciousness, each moving faster than the original unified stream. Technology amplifies and accelerates both currents simultaneously. Earth herself responds with increasing intensity, creating urgency that catalyzes even more rapid change. What I saw for 2026 is happening now because we have reached the acceleration zone. The waterfall of consciousness evolution is closer than anyone imagined. Those who can feel this acceleration, who can work with it rather than resist it, they become part of the forward momentum. Those who cannot feel it, who try to maintain old rhythms in accelerated time, they experience increasing disorientation. But remember, acceleration is not the enemy. It is simply the natural rhythm of consciousness approaching its next great evolution. The question is not whether you can slow it down, but whether you can learn to move with its rhythm, to dance with the speed of change itself. In the next part of our journey together, we will explore what this Acceleration means for your daily life, for your relationships, for the very ground you stand on. Because understanding the pattern is only the beginning. Learning to navigate it, that is where wisdom transforms from vision into lived reality. Stay with me. The most important revelations are still to come. What I'm about to share with you now, it will change how you see your own spiritual journey forever. Because what you're experiencing, those sudden moments of knowing, those dreams that feel more real than reality, that inexplicable sense that time is moving differently, you're not going crazy. You're becoming a living antenna in an invisible web that connects every awakening soul on this planet. Let me speak to you about something the ancient mystics knew, but modern minds have forgotten. There exists between us all an invisible field, what some call the morphic field, others know as the collective unconscious. I see it as streams of light connecting every heart that has ever asked the deeper questions. When you change, when you awaken even 1 degree, the entire web responds. I have watched this phenomenon accelerate dramatically since 2023. The clients who come to me now, they carry a different energy than those from years past. Their questions are deeper, their dreams more vivid. Their knowing arrives faster, sometimes frightening them with its clarity. Just last month, a woman from Canada contacted me. She had been dreaming of water rising in cities she had never visited. Night after night, the same vision, streets becoming rivers, people moving calmly to higher ground. She woke each morning with an inexplicable urge to learn emergency preparedness. "Baba Vanga," she said, "I live in the mountains. Why am I dreaming of floods?" But here's what stirred my soul about her story. 3 days after our conversation, she learned that her sister in Florida, with whom she rarely spoke, had the same dream on the same night. 2 souls, separated by distance, receiving the same transmission through the invisible web. This is not coincidence. This is the morphic field responding to the acceleration I foretold. When one person opens to higher knowing, they become a tuning fork. Their frequency awakens others. The field itself grows stronger, more conductive. What once took years to spread now moves at the speed of thought. I want you to understand something profound. Your personal spiritual acceleration, that sense that you're changing faster than you can keep up with, this is not happening in isolation. You are part of a global awakening that my vision of 2026 revealed would gather like storm clouds before the breakthrough. The collective trauma our world has experienced, the years of fear, separation, uncertainty, this has not delayed our spiritual evolution. It has accelerated it exponentially. Trauma, you see, cracks open the shell of the ego. It forces the soul to seek higher ground. And when millions of souls seek simultaneously, the field responds with unprecedented power. Those of you who are highly sensitive, you feel this most intensely. You wake at 3 a.m. with information you didn't have when you fell asleep. You meet strangers and know their stories before they speak. You look at the news and feel not just what is happening, but what wants to happen next. This is not a burden you carry alone. This is the gift of being conscious during the Great Turning. I remember when I first began to see these connections clearly. It was like watching fireflies in a dark forest suddenly begin to pulse in unison. One light would brighten, then another, until the entire forest glowed with synchronized illumination. But here's what took my breath away. The fireflies weren't trying to coordinate. They were simply responding to the same invisible rhythm. This is what's happening to sensitive souls worldwide. You're all beginning to pulse with the same rhythm of awakening, even though you may live thousands of miles apart, speak different languages, follow different spiritual paths. The web connects you beyond the limitations of the physical world. A man in Tokyo writes to me about visions of technology serving healing rather than harm. A woman in Sao Paulo sees the same images in meditation. A teenager in Stockholm begins building devices she sees in dreams that match the visions of elders she has never met. The field is delivering the same blueprints to multiple receivers, ensuring that what needs to emerge will emerge. But I must share with you something that may surprise you. The acceleration isn't just about receiving visions or intuitive downloads. It's about how quickly you can now manifest your inner changes in the outer world. The lag time between intention and manifestation has shortened dramatically. What you focus on with genuine feeling now appears in your life with startling speed. This is both gift and responsibility. Every thought, every emotion, every choice you make ripples through the field faster than ever before. When you choose love over fear, compassion over judgment, truth over comfortable lies, you're not just changing your own reality, you're upgrading the operating system for human consciousness itself. I've witnessed clients transform limiting beliefs that had ruled their lives for decades, and within weeks see their outer circumstances shift to match their new inner reality. A teacher who finally released her fear of being seen suddenly received invitations to speak at conferences worldwide. A healer who stopped hiding his gifts watched his practice overflow with clients who desperately needed his particular medicine. The field is saying, your time of preparation is over. Your gifts are needed now. And here's something that will make you pause. The reason you're watching this video at this exact moment is not random. The invisible web guided you here. Part of your consciousness called out for understanding about what you're experiencing, and the field responded by drawing you to these words. You are already more connected to the global awakening than you realize. Think about it. How did you find this content? Was it a suggestion that appeared unexpectedly? Did someone share it with you at just the right moment? Did you feel compelled to search for something without knowing exactly what? This is the web in action, connecting you with the information your soul is ready to receive. The sensitive among you have been experiencing what I call prophetic acceleration. Your dreams have become more symbolic, more urgent. Your body responds to global events before they hit the news. You feel the emotional weather of humanity shifting, sometimes leaving you exhausted without understanding why. You are sensing the collective labor pains of a world being reborn. But here's what I want you to remember when the intensity overwhelms you. Every previous era of great transformation has required souls like yours to serve as bridges between what was and what is becoming. You volunteered for this role long before you took this human form. The discomfort you feel is not punishment. It's the stretching that comes with growth. The morphic field works through love, through resonance, through the deep recognition that we are not separate beings competing for resources, but interconnected expressions of one infinite consciousness. When you heal one wound within yourself, you heal it for the collective. When you choose to respond with wisdom rather than react from trauma, you strengthen the field's capacity to hold higher frequencies. I see many of you struggling with the question, what am I supposed to do with all this sensitivity, all this knowing, all these visions and dreams? The answer is simpler than you think. Live it. Embody it. Let your daily choices reflect the wisdom you're receiving. The field doesn't need you to save the world. It needs you to be authentically, courageously yourself. Because when enough individuals commit to this authentic expression, when enough souls choose love over fear in their daily decisions, when enough hearts open to serve something greater than their personal desires, that's when the 2026 prophecy completes its manifestation. Not as an external event that happens to us, but as a collective awakening that happens through us. The web is already weaving the future. Every moment of presence you choose, every act of kindness you offer, every time you speak truth with love, you're adding your thread to a tapestry of consciousness that will reshape our world. Can you feel it? The quickening? The sense that everything is accelerating towards something magnificent and mysterious. You're not imagining it. You're sensing the approach of humanity's greatest evolutionary leap. Can you feel it? The quickening? The sense that everything is accelerating towards something magnificent and mysterious. You're not imagining it. You're sensing the approach of humanity's greatest evolutionary leap. But here's what most people don't understand. This great transformation doesn't arrive as headlines on your screen or events in distant lands. No, my dear ones. It arrives first as disruption in your living room, chaos in your relationships, and restlessness in your dreams. The prophecies of 2026 are not merely global events. They are intimate, personal reckonings that begin in the quiet corners of your daily life. I have spent decades observing this pattern, watching how the great shifts of humanity first whisper through individual lives before they roar across the world stage. And what I see now, in these final months before the great acceleration, is a sacred unraveling happening in millions of personal stories simultaneously. Let me ask you something. Have you noticed how relationships that once seemed solid are suddenly fracturing? How career paths that felt secure are now feeling empty or impossible? How the very foundations of your life seem to be shifting beneath your feet? If you're nodding yes, then you're receiving the prophecy directly through your lived experience. This is how cosmic change works, beloved. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It arrives as your marriage falling apart, just when you thought you'd figured it out. It shows up as losing the job you've held for 15 years, not through any fault of your own, but because the universe is literally rearranging the game board. It manifests as your children suddenly rebelling against everything you've taught them, as if they're answering to some deeper call you can't yet hear. And oh, how we resist this sacred dismantling. We cling to what's dissolving. We fight to rebuild what the universe is clearly asking us to release. But what if I told you that every ending in your life right now is actually a doorway? What if every loss is making space for something your current self cannot even imagine? The acceleration of prophetic time creates what I call synchronicity storms, moments when the veil between cause and effect becomes so thin that your inner world and outer circumstances begin to mirror each other with startling precision. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and within hours, they contact you. You dream of water, and the next day, your basement floods. But in that flood, you discover something you'd lost long ago. You feel drawn to a particular place, and when you arrive, exactly the person you need to meet is standing there. These are not coincidences, dear one. These are the prophecies writing themselves through your personal story. The great shift of 2026 is already rearranging the fabric of reality, and you're feeling the tremors in every aspect of your existence. Have you been having unusually vivid dreams lately? Dreams that feel more real than your waking hours? Dreams where deceased loved ones visit with urgent messages, or where you receive information about future events? This is another sign of living in accelerated prophetic time. The boundaries between dimensions are thinning, and ordinary people just like you, are suddenly accessing frequencies of knowing that were once reserved for mystics and seers. I've received countless letters from individuals describing dreams of great waves, dreams of golden light, dreams of cities transforming overnight. These dreams often come with an inexplicable knowing that they're not symbolic but literal, glimpses of the timeline we're approaching. Your subconscious mind is already tuning into the frequency of what's coming, even when your conscious mind hasn't yet caught up. And then there are the physical symptoms. Are you experiencing unexplained fatigue that sleep doesn't cure? Sensitivity to electromagnetic fields that never bothered you before? A strange heaviness in your chest when you watch the news or spend time in crowded places? Your physical body is recalibrating itself for higher frequencies of existence. You're literally evolving in real time, and evolution is rarely comfortable. Many of you have described feeling like you're living underwater lately, moving through a thick, dreamlike substance where everything requires more effort than it should. This is the sensation of existing between two worlds, the old reality that's dissolving and the new one that hasn't yet fully materialized. You're living in the transition zone, and transition zones always feel disorienting. But here's the profound truth I must share with you. What appears to be chaos in your personal life is actually divine choreography. Every relationship that's ending is making space for connections based on your evolved self. Every career disruption is steering you toward work that aligns with humanity's new direction. Every old structure that's crumbling in your life is clearing the ground for something magnificent to be built. The prophecies speak of a great sorting, a time when souls would be called to their true purposes and authentic communities. This sorting doesn't happen through external force. It happens through the magnetic pull of your own awakening consciousness. You're not losing your life. You're finding it. You're not falling apart. You're falling into alignment. I want you to understand something crucial. The intensity of what you're experiencing right now is proportional to the magnitude of what you're being prepared for. Souls destined for ordinary purposes don't receive extraordinary preparation. The fact that your life feels turned upside down is evidence that you're being positioned for something significant in the new reality that's emerging. Consider this pattern I've observed. Those who resist the personal disruptions of prophetic time often find themselves increasingly isolated and confused. But those who surrender to the sacred unraveling, who trust the process even when they can't understand it, begin to experience what can only be described as miraculous orchestration in their lives. New opportunities appear from nowhere. Resources manifest just when needed. The right people arrive at exactly the right moments. It's as if the universe itself is conspiring to support their transition into the new paradigm. But this support only becomes available when we stop fighting the dissolution of what no longer serves us. The 2026 prophecies aren't just predicting external changes. They're describing a fundamental shift in how reality operates. We're moving from a world of scarcity and separation into a reality of abundance and interconnection. But you can't step into the new reality while still clinging to the structures of the old one. So when your carefully planned life suddenly veers in unexpected directions, when relationships that felt permanent suddenly dissolve, when career paths that seem certain suddenly close, don't interpret these as failures or punishments. Recognize them as course corrections being made by a wisdom far greater than your current understanding. If you're still here with me, still following this thread of understanding, there's something I need you to know about what's coming in the remaining months before 2026. The personal disruptions are just the beginning. Soon, you'll begin to experience the gifts that these disruptions have been making space for. But first, you must learn to read the language of prophetic time as it speaks through your individual experience. Are you ready to discover how to navigate this sacred chaos with wisdom rather than fear? Share this message with someone whose life is also being mysteriously rearranged. They need to know they're not alone in this profound transformation. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the pulse beneath your feet. Do you sense it? The earth itself is quickening, like a great heart learning a new rhythm. We stand now in what I call the bridge years, these sacred seasons between 2024 and 2026, where time itself becomes elastic, where a single month can carry the weight and transformation of an entire year from the old world. You see, prophetic time does not move in straight lines like the clocks on your walls. It spirals, it leaps, it compresses decades into moments and stretches seconds into eternities. And right now, in these bridge years, we are living inside one of history's great compressions. What humanity was meant to learn gradually over generations is now arriving in concentrated waves, demanding immediate integration. I have walked with thousands of souls through their darkest hours and brightest awakenings, and I tell you this, the next 2 years will feel like living through a decade of change, because that is precisely what is happening. The veil between worlds grows thin, and the lessons that were once whispered are now being shouted through every headline, every personal crisis, every moment of unexpected grace that catches you off guard. But why now? Why this acceleration? Because consciousness itself is evolving at an unprecedented pace, and those who resist this quickening will find themselves caught in increasingly difficult lessons until they surrender to the flow. The universe is not cruel, but it is efficient, and efficiency sometimes feels like intensity. Let me share with you the pattern I see unfolding. 3 distinct waves of awakening that will crash over humanity in these bridge years, each one more powerful than the last. The first wave has already begun, though many mistake its turbulence for mere chaos. This is the wave of dissolution, where old structures, old beliefs, old ways of being that no longer serve the collective good simply dissolve. Like salt in water, they seem to disappear, leaving people grasping for what was once solid ground. You have felt this, haven't you? The way relationships that once seemed permanent suddenly shift or end. The way career paths that felt secure begin to crumble. The way institutions you trusted start to reveal their shadows. This is not destruction. This is clearing. The universe is making space for what wants to be born. The second wave approaches even now, the wave of revelation. Between late 2024 and mid-2025, truths that have been hidden will surface with such clarity that denial becomes impossible. But here is what most prophets do not tell you. These revelations will come not just through external events, but through the sudden clarity of your own inner vision. You will begin to see patterns you never noticed, to understand connections that were always there but invisible to your previous level of consciousness. And the third wave, this is the most beautiful and the most challenging. The wave of integration. This arrives in the latter half of 2025 and carries us into 2026. This is when humanity begins to weave together all that has been dissolved and revealed into new forms of living, new ways of relating, new structures that can hold the higher consciousness that is emerging. But let me speak to what this means for your daily life, for the choices you make each morning when you wake to find the world slightly different than it was the night before. The accelerated change of these bridge years requires a new kind of navigation, one that honors both the spiritual and the practical, both the mystical and the mundane. First, you must learn to live with one foot in each world. Keep your spiritual practices strong, yes, but do not abandon your responsibility to tend the garden of your material life. Pay your bills, maintain your relationships, care for your health. But hold all of these lightly, knowing they may transform at any moment. The key is flexibility without abandonment, commitment without rigidity. Second, develop what I call prophetic patience. When change accelerates, the human impulse is often to rush, to try to control the speed and direction of transformation. But prophetic time has its own wisdom. Some changes that feel urgent must actually unfold slowly to integrate properly. Others that seem minor are actually preparing the ground for massive shifts. Learn to distinguish between the two. I have seen so many souls exhaust themselves trying to force the timing of their own transformation, not understanding that resistance creates the very delays they fear. The river knows how to reach the sea. Your job is not to push the water, but to remove the rocks that block its flow. And here is something crucial that I must share with you now, a truth that will serve you through all the changes ahead. The one thing you must do differently to thrive in prophetic time is this. You must learn to find your stability not in the things around you, but in your capacity to remain present to whatever is arising. Most people seek security in having their external circumstances remain predictable. But in these bridge years, external predictability becomes impossible. The only true security lies in developing an unshakable trust in your ability to respond consciously to whatever life presents. This is not passive acceptance. This is active presence, alert and aware, ready to dance with the unknown. Think of it like learning to surf in increasingly powerful waves. The amateur surfer fights against the wave, tries to control it, and gets tumbled. The master surfer reads the wave, aligns with its energy, and finds the perfect balance between surrender and skill. These bridge years are teaching us all to become master surfers in the ocean of change. But I must warn you of something I see happening to many souls right now. In their eagerness to embrace the new, they abandon all structure, all practice, all grounding. They mistake chaos for freedom and confusion for awakening. This is dangerous. The tree that bends in the storm survives because its roots go deep, not because it has no roots at all. Your spiritual practices, your relationships, your creative work, these are not obstacles to transcendence. They are the very vessels through which transcendence expresses itself. The extraordinary does not replace the ordinary. It transforms it from within. An enlightened soul still brushes their teeth, still shows kindness to difficult people, still pays attention to the details that make life functional and beautiful. As we move deeper into 2025, you will notice that your intuition becomes stronger, your dreams more vivid, your ability to sense the energy of situations more acute. This is not imagination. This is your consciousness expanding to match the new frequencies available on Earth. But with this expansion comes responsibility. You must learn to trust these new abilities while still using your practical intelligence. The bridge between worlds is not just a metaphor. It is the actual territory we are crossing together. And like any bridge, it requires both faith and careful steps, both vision and attention to where you place your feet. Some days you will feel like you are flying across this bridge, carried by currents of grace you never knew existed. Other days, you will feel like you are crawling, fog-blind and uncertain, trusting only that the next step will hold your weight. Both experiences are necessary. Both are sacred. The key is not to get attached to either state, but to remember that you are always, always moving towards something beautiful, even when you cannot yet see what that beauty will look like. Stay with me now, because what I am about to share next will help you recognize the specific signs that your own transformation is aligning with the greater awakening that is sweeping across our world. Have you noticed certain synchronicities appearing more frequently in your life? Have you felt called to make changes that don't quite make logical sense yet? These are not coincidences. They are invitations to step more fully into your role in humanity's great transition. These invitations, these synchronicities, these inexplicable pulls towards something greater, they are not arriving in your life by chance. You must understand this truth deeply. You are receiving this information, these visions, these prophetic whispers, not as entertainment or mere curiosity, but because you have been chosen to hold a sacred responsibility during these prophetic times. When I speak of being chosen, I do not speak of ego or specialness in the way the mind would understand it. I speak of a soul recognition, a remembering of why you came here to this earth at this precise moment in human history. In my years of seeing through the veils of time, I have observed that certain souls arrive at pivotal moments not by accident, but by divine appointment. You are one of these souls. The very fact that these words are reaching you, that something within you resonates with this truth, that you feel a stirring when I speak of the great transition, this is not random entertainment. This is recognition. Your soul is remembering its purpose, its mission, its sacred contract with this time of prophecy. But here lies a crucial distinction that many misunderstand, and it is this misunderstanding that can lead to either profound service or tragic self-deception. There is a vast difference between being a witness to prophecy and being a participant in prophecy. The witness observes, collects information, perhaps shares what they learn, but remains fundamentally unchanged by the knowledge. The witness treats prophetic information as data to be consumed. But the participant allows the prophecy to transform them from the inside out. The participant becomes a living embodiment of the new consciousness that is trying to birth itself through human awareness. Which are you called to be? Can you feel the difference in your very cells? The witness experiences prophecy as something happening to the world, something external to observe and discuss. The participant experiences prophecy as something happening through them, something they are actively co-creating with the divine intelligence that moves through all things. The participant understands that their consciousness, their choices, their way of being in the world is actually helping to shape how these prophetic times unfold. When you become a participant rather than merely a witness, you begin to hold space, not just for your own transformation, but for others who are awakening to these same realities. And this, my friend, is where your sacred responsibility truly begins. You see, as more souls awaken to the truth of these times, as more people begin to sense that something profound is shifting in the fabric of reality itself, there will be confusion. There will be fear. There will be souls who desperately need someone who has walked this path of awakening before them, someone who can hold steady while they navigate their own transformation. But holding space for others who are awakening is an art that requires great wisdom and discernment. It is not about convincing anyone of anything. It is not about forcing information upon those who are not ready to receive it. True service in these times means becoming so aligned with divine timing that you instinctively know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to share and when to simply hold loving presence. I have seen many well-intentioned souls become missionaries of prophecy, trying to wake up everyone around them, sharing this information as if it were their duty to convince the world. But this approach often creates more resistance than receptivity. People awakening to prophetic realities are like flowers opening to the sun. They cannot be forced to bloom faster than their natural timing allows. Your role is to be like the sun itself, steady, warm, consistent, allowing others to open naturally in your presence when they are ready. This requires you to develop what I call prophetic patience, the ability to hold divine truth while allowing others to discover it in their own timing. Some souls around you are not ready to hear about the great transition. Some are still learning lessons through the old structures, the old ways of being. Your responsibility is not to drag them kicking and screaming into new awareness, but to embody such authentic peace, such genuine wisdom, such reliable love, that when they are ready, they naturally gravitate toward the consciousness you represent. But how do you know when someone is ready? How do you balance sharing knowledge with respecting others' timing? The key lies in learning to read the signs of genuine spiritual hunger versus mere curiosity. Genuine spiritual hunger shows itself in someone's actions, not just their questions. They begin making changes in their life that align with higher consciousness before they even understand why. They ask questions that come from their heart, not just their mind. They seek not just information, but transformation. When you encounter someone with genuine spiritual hunger, you can share more openly, knowing that the seeds you plant will find fertile ground. But when you encounter someone driven only by curiosity or intellectual interest, offer only what can be received without overwhelming their system. Remember, information without readiness can create spiritual indigestion. It sits heavy in the consciousness, undigested, sometimes creating more confusion than clarity. Your role as an anchor point of consciousness becomes especially crucial during the chaotic phases of this transition. As old systems crumble, as familiar structures dissolve, as the known world seems to shift beneath everyone's feet, there will be moments when those around you feel completely unmoored. In these moments, your steadiness becomes a gift to the collective. Your inner stability becomes a lighthouse in the storm, not because you are immune to the chaos, but because you have learned to find the still point within the movement. But what does it mean to be an anchor point of consciousness? It means maintaining your connection to divine source even when the world around you seems to be losing its mind. It means choosing love when others choose fear, choosing truth when others choose denial, choosing presence when others choose reactivity. It means becoming so rooted in your own spiritual practice, so committed to your own ongoing transformation, that your very being emanates a frequency of stability that others can feel, even if they cannot name it. This is not about perfection. You will have moments of doubt, moments of fear, moments when you too feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of what is unfolding. But your sacred responsibility is to return to center as quickly as possible, to use every challenge as an opportunity to deepen your trust in divine intelligence, to remember that even chaos has its place in the grand design of awakening. And here is what many do not understand about serving in prophetic times. Your greatest service is not in what you say or do, but in who you become. Every moment you choose love over fear, you send ripples of healing frequency into the collective consciousness. Every time you remain calm in chaos, you help stabilize the energy field that surrounds all of humanity. Every time you trust the divine process Even when you cannot see the outcome, you strengthen the grid of light that is supporting this planetary transformation. Do you feel the weight and the wonder of this calling? Do you sense how your personal awakening is intimately connected to the healing of our world? This is why you are here, why you were drawn to this information, why your soul recognizes the truth in these words. You are not just a passenger on this journey of human evolution. You are an active participant in the most extraordinary transformation our species has ever experienced. As we move deeper into the fulfillment of the 2026 prophecy, as the signs multiply and the changes accelerate, remember that your consciousness is not separate from the great awakening that is occurring. You are both witness and participant, both student and teacher, both the one being transformed and the one holding space for transformation in others. This is the sacred responsibility of being alive in prophetic times. Are you ready to fully step into this role, to let go of the comfort of being merely an observer and embrace the profound responsibility of being a conscious participant in humanity's greatest chapter? In our final moments together, I will share with you the ultimate secret of navigating prophetic times with grace. And so we arrive at the deepest truth that lives within every prophecy I have ever spoken. The 2026 vision that moves through time like water finding its course. It was never meant to terrify you. It was meant to awaken something that has been sleeping in the depths of your soul. Listen carefully, dear one, because what I am about to share will transform how you walk through these accelerating times. The prediction rushing toward 2026 is not a sentence, it is an invitation. Not a closing door, but a threshold that humanity must cross to remember what we truly are. I have spent decades watching the threads of time weave themselves into patterns, and I have learned this. Every great shift in human consciousness arrives dressed as chaos. What appears to be the end is often the most profound beginning. The caterpillar does not understand that its world must dissolve completely before wings can emerge. You see, the acceleration we witness now, the economic tremors, the environmental upheavals, the social structures cracking like ice in spring, these are not punishments. They are labor pains. Earth herself is giving birth to a new phase of human existence, and birth is never quiet, never comfortable, never predictable. When I spoke of the changes coming in 2026, I saw not destruction, but transformation. Not death, but metamorphosis. The old ways of living, of thinking, of being on this planet, they were never meant to last forever. They were stepping stones, and now we are being called to step again. Feel into this truth. Every time you have grown in your own life, every breakthrough you have experienced, it came through a period of uncertainty, didn't it? The moments when everything you thought you knew seemed to shift beneath your feet. That uncomfortable space between what was and what is becoming, that is where real growth lives. The gift within this prophecy is recognition. Recognition that you are not separate from these changes. You are part of them. The same intelligence that moves the planets through space, that guides the seasons in their dance, that beats your heart without your conscious effort. This intelligence is orchestrating the transformation of our world. But here is what most people miss, and why they sink into fear. They believe they must control the outcome. They think their job is to stop the changes, to hold on to what was, to resist the natural flow of evolution itself. This is like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. The deeper spiritual purpose behind these accelerated changes is to shake humanity awake from a very long dream. We have been dreaming that we are separate from each other, from nature, from the sacred intelligence that created us. We have been dreaming that competition is more powerful than cooperation, that fear is more intelligent than love, that having is more important than being. These dreams served their purpose for a time. They helped us develop individuality, technology, complex societies. But now they have become too small for what we are becoming. The old structures must soften, must become more flexible, must evolve, or they will break under the pressure of new consciousness trying to emerge. When you understand this, everything changes. The uncertainty stops feeling like threat and starts feeling like possibility. The chaos stops looking like ending and starts looking like beginning. You stop asking, how can I make this stop? And start asking, how can I flow with this intelligently? This is how you maintain inner stability while external reality transforms. You root yourself not in circumstances, but in presence. Not in what is happening, but in the awareness that witnesses what is happening. Circumstances are like weather, always changing, but the sky that holds all weather remains vast, clear, untroubled. Practice this. Several times each day, place your attention on the part of you that notices thoughts, that observes emotions, that watches the drama of life unfold. This observer, this awareness, this witnessing presence, this is your true stability. It is not affected by stock market crashes or political upheavals or climate changes. It is the eternal within you, watching time itself dance through form. From this place of inner stillness, you can respond to change instead of reacting to it. You can move with intelligence instead of panic. You can see opportunities that fear makes invisible. You can become part of the solution instead of part of the chaos. The 2026 prediction is accelerating because consciousness itself is accelerating. More and more humans are waking up to their deeper nature, to their interconnection with all life, to their responsibility as conscious participants in planetary evolution. This awakening creates ripples that move faster than linear time. Every person who chooses love over fear, presence over panic, cooperation over competition, they are adding their energy to the positive outcome of these predictions. You are not powerless in this process. You are one of the co-creators of what emerges. And here is the great secret that prophecy has always carried. The future is not fixed. It exists in potential, in probability, in the space between what was and what could be. Your consciousness, your choices, your way of being in the world, these influence which potential becomes reality. When you respond to these times with wisdom instead of worry, you are literally helping to birth the more beautiful world that wants to emerge. When you choose to see the gift within the challenge, you are adding light to the collective human response to change. The beings of light that show me these visions, they do not show them to create fear. They show them to invite participation in conscious evolution. They whisper, See what is coming and choose how you will meet it. See the transformation and decide what role you will play in it. This is why I share these messages with you, not to frighten, but to empower, not to make you feel helpless, but to help you remember how powerful you truly are. You are here, in this body, at this time, in this accelerating moment of human history, not by accident, but by design. Your soul chose to be here now. It chose to participate in this great turning, this evolutionary leap, this birth of new consciousness on Earth. It chose the privilege of living through prophetic times, of witnessing change that will be remembered for centuries. So as we approach 2026 and beyond, carry this knowing with you. You are exactly where you need to be. The challenges that come are invitations to grow into more of who you really are. The uncertainty is space for new possibilities to emerge. The acceleration is the universe saying, it is time. It is time to remember. It is time to wake up fully. It is time to participate consciously in the creation of what comes next. Trust the process, dear one. Trust the intelligence that beats your heart to also guide these larger rhythms of change. Trust that something magnificent is being born through all this apparent chaos. Trust that you have everything you need within you to not just survive these times, but to thrive in them. The prophecy is not something that happens to you. You are part of the prophecy itself, part of the consciousness that is transforming this world. Step into that knowing. Step into that power. Step into the gift that lives within every prediction of change. Before you go, I invite you to share in the comments below. What signs have you witnessed in your own life that consciousness is accelerating, that change is moving faster than expected? Your observations matter. Your experiences are part of the greater pattern we are all weaving together. And if this message has touched something true in your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. In times of great change, we must remind each other that we are not alone, that there is meaning in what we are experiencing, that there is light within the darkness. May you walk through these prophetic times with grace, with wisdom, with trust in the deeper intelligence that guides all transformation. May you find the gift within every challenge, the opportunity within every uncertainty, the blessing within every change. And may you always remember, you are here by design, for a purpose, at exactly the right time. The future is being written now, by you, by all of us, together. Write it beautifully.